Jeff, super excited about having our guest today.
Absolutely.
I really don't want to talk about ice too much. I know this is an ice podcast.
We're going to talk about ice
We're
even.
going to talk about ice, but super excited about getting in some things, and we'll leave that to the introduction when you get to that, Jeff. But we're going to get started with our first question with our guest today, Matthew Belter. Matthew, take us back to the beginning. How did Bear Ice get started, and at what point did you personally decide, this is the path that I want to go down?
Sure. So Bear Ice has been around for approximately 35 years. It's kind of crazy. Um, I took a different path out of college. I was much more interested in finance and business and just getting out of my house, quite honestly. And my brother and my dad founded Bear Ice. Um, at that time, it was really a play on my dad's job. He worked for the sheriff's department, and they had a lot of issues regarding emergency services, and he felt that there was a need at that point for ice. And so he started this company with my brother, where they looked at it as an opportunity for my brother to build a career as an entrepreneur. Um, that business moved along nicely for many years. Um, I had I had been bouncing all over the place with different companies. I spent about 18 years at Sears Holdings, where I ran their home appliance business from a sales perspective across the country. So I did lots of traveling. We lived all over the place. And then when we came back, I took a job as a VP of marketing for an educational company. And it was getting to the point where I was like, look, is this really what life's about? Specifically, is this, do I want to be tied to somebody else, or do I want to do something on my own? And at that point, my dad was retiring from the sheriff's department. And we had a discussion, and he said, look, this might be a great opportunity for you to come over and help us build the business with your expertise. And at around 2013 or 2014 is when I joined Bear Ice, and been here ever since. So it's been an amazing opportunity for us, to start off really focusing in on those emergency services pieces, and then expanding it in such a way that we're more of a full service ice distributor right now. I would consider us a niche. We do not manufacture ice. We work with different folks that help us with that. But we're more of a niche distributor, with trailer rentals and other types of things too. So,
How was the how was the transition to go from Sears Holding and doing those things to, running, helping with an ice company? Was it a culture shock? Was it welcomed relief? What, how would you define it?
um, well, it's a great question. Uh, right out of the gate, it was kind of a culture shock, because when you work for a major organization, we had at our home office in Hoffman Estates, where I worked for a good part of that career, we had upwards of 6,000 people that worked in the building. And so it was one of the largest buildings outside of the Pentagon for business at that time. And it was very regimented. You get in at a particular time, and you meet your counterparts. You might get coffee, and there's a process. Then there's meetings all the time, right, all day long. And then on top of that, then you're planning travel for where you're going. And for myself, it was all over the place. I've traveled everywhere from Anchorage, Alaska to Puerto Rico and everywhere in between. I've been to every state. And so the transition to a fully entrepreneurial, you're on your own, you got to manage it how you see fit, was different, because I was never used to that structure.
Hmm.
And when you become unstructured in a way, you have to kind of learn from scratch again. I went to business school at Notre Dame. I'm very fluent in how all this works, but it's very different when you have to go into it as your own business owner. It's different when you're thinking about it theoretically. And so, for myself, it took me about 2 years to really kind of get up to speed on what this industry was about. And then, on top of that, being able to understand how and where I fit in as a co-owner of the company.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I I totally see guys that run their own ice company almost as modern day cowboys. Like they, you just never know what they're going to get into and what they're going to have to handle. And it sounds like such a different world than where you came from. Well, to introduce everyone to Matthew, Matthew Belter is the CEO of Bear Ice Company in Southern California. He also we want to talk to him about he is a photographer of rock star live music. He has quite a presence in the music industry as a photographer, and you'll see his work is very impressive. He's also built parallel careers between supplying ice for these major events and creating concert images and how that works together. And today he also serves in editorial roles with outlets like Honeypot Unlimited and the Vinyl District, where he continues to contribute to the music industry and mentor people in that industry. And so we're really excited to talk to you about a variety of topics,
And
Matthew.
we have to talk about ice at some point, though. So.
Well,
Of course, of course.
let me ask. I want to ask the family business kind of question. What is the
Sure.
two parts? What is the most rewarding part of working with your family, and what's the most challenging part of working with your family?
Great. That's a great question. And I get that asked a lot. You know, when you are working with family members, I think the initial thought that I had was, well, you come in with a unique skill set, you're going to be aptly able to manage this, and you've managed people in the past. I ran large swaths of people all across the country, at every level. So I understand how all that worked. Um, Not the case, honestly, in a family business. When you're dealing with your father and your brother, and everyone has kind of preset opinions and agendas about things, and maybe ways they've done that over the years. Um, I'm not going to lie and tell you that it was easy. It was a very challenging um, time for me to be able to kind of relearn how to communicate differently with my family than I had in the past, and then to be able to integrate the business parts of this to it. Right? That's such a critical factor to be able to bring what you've learned over the years to a business to help it grow, and to do it in such a way that your communication comes across in a positive way. So I started with the frustrations because it leads into the positives. Working with my family is amazing. It truly is a family business. My dad is truly retired. He's an advisor for our consigliere, if you would. He helps us all the time with answering questions and how would we walk through things. My brother kind of manages the day-to-day operations in the field, routing, truck maintenance, things that he's done for a long time. And then, on the back end, I handle all the administrative and operational things behind the scenes, and including sales development. And we've learned over the last number of years how to definitely function better. Um, and it's very rewarding, quite honestly, because we are all in this for the same reasons. To grow our business, to have a life that's kind of free of corporate chains, and to be able to do it in such a way that we can enjoy our own lives as and not just family members, but with our own individual families too, right?
Mhm.
And so that's been really, really positive. And then we've also integrated other people into the family. My brother's wife, my wife, my nephew Kate now is working as a director for us, and he's been jumping in to help us grow. And so we're starting to see kind of the fruits of our labor over the last 10 years, maybe, build out to a point where it's a much more family oriented business than ever before, and it looks to continue to grow down the road.
Matthew, you talked about, I mean, you didn't say it this way, but I'm going to frame it this way, the kind of the institutionalization of being in that corporate environment, right? So with Sears Holding, you come down to the family business. Did you ever have, your brother, your dad say, "Hey, Matthew, you got to chill out. That's not how this is going to work down here," or, you got to take a step back. Uh, and not to say that you got to, pull back the Band-Aid and apply salt in the wounds anywhere. But, obviously other people go through the similar things, or they're getting into it and they're listening. I was just kind of curious if you could shed any light and give anybody, because you're not the first person that I've talked to in my career that has went out into more of a corporate job and then come into,
Mhm.
the ice business or come back to it.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to communication, and I'm a you know I've always thought of myself as highly educated, very organized, focused, and again, sometimes when you're translating that to real world scenarios, it becomes a little clunky. And what I learned right away was, working with my dad and my brother, they're very different people. They've had way different experiences than me. Um, my dad was an administrator. He was in Vietnam. He flew there and then came back and he ran aviation for the sheriff's department here, one of the largest counties in the country. And so you're dealing with very different types of people. And I think some of the initial, feedback or things I was offering was taken. And I thought sometimes there was, maybe some eye rolling or, hey, where's this guy coming from? I really, we've done this our whole life this way, and now he's coming in wanting to do something different. And, there were some fences that were put up initially that were, had to be brought back down. We kind of, staked out our own areas and we stuck to our guns and only when we started to realize that it was going to be through, consistent communication, having discussions with each other, that we were able to start working through some of that stuff. And we don't really have those problems anymore. There are some issues that arise on occasion that are just more on how we work independently out in the field. I may look at it a particular way because I've got an experience or I've learned something recently, and my brother might look at it differently because he's out doing it every day. So
Mhm.
I think it's my advice in these cases is to listen twice as much as you speak, to try and understand what the actual impact of what people are saying to you are, because as humans we have a tendency, and especially in this day and age, to react quickly to what you hear. We're programmed in social media to just lash out at people, and if we don't agree with you, then we're going to tell you we don't agree with you and why you're wrong.
Right.
You
Right.
can't do that in the family business. You have to listen, and
Yeah.
you have to come to some alignments, and sometimes those alignments are negotiated, and we try certain things out. Does it work? Does it not work? And then every month we'll kind of tweak and adjust to make sure we're going down the right path. But it there's definitely been over the years, and it continues today, not in the same degree, but we're all human and we all have points of view, and sometimes you just have to listen and kind of work through it.
I feel
Mhm.
like you just gave a metaphor. You could change about 20, 30 words in what you just defined, like a marriage. Of all the things that you're talking about is, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes you need to listen twice as much as you talk, and all of
Yep.
those things. So, I mean, in going into business with folks, you always heard it. It's a corporate marriage. So it makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. So, coming from your background, what do you think was, the first things that you saw that you wanted to change with the ice company? Or what, looking back on it, maybe what's the most important thing that you think you've changed, um, f- based on your history and
Sure.
your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. The When I came over, I was a younger man at that time, fresh off of different corporate experiences, and the thing that I felt we had to do right away was kind of bring the company to a little bit more formality. With the way it was being run at that point, there's nothing wrong with it, but it was my mom and my dad, and they were, it was like I always kind of tease them. It was like doing business off the back of napkins in a sense. Lots of relationships with
Oh,
people. We'll get to it when we can. No urgency for collections and other things. It was just kind of that family type of thing. We're going to work with you, you work with us. And as we started growing the business, what we found was that there were key parts of the business, everything from the formal legal entity to how it was structured in an accounting format, and everything in between that needed to be rehashed and retooled a little bit. Um, on top of that, it was much more, I think what I brought to the company was much more of a focus on sales, understanding that for us to be able to live the way we want to live and comfortably, we had to start expanding and doing different types of things, maybe different than we've done in the past. Integration of trailer rentals, perhaps, maybe utilization of different products like dry ice and other things. Not just serving restaurants and emergency service bureaus, but maybe residences and large scale festivals and things like that. So I think I brought those things, that the eagerness and the openness to be able to look at lots of stuff, almost like in a fire hose fashion that I think helped us along the way to build this out. But it had to be more formal, and I think that's kind of what we lacked, and we're much more structured today. Um, you know, all these years in with me being here, that have helped to do that.
And with that, we are done with the. And,
The
oh,
lights
wait, no,
are
we're
out.
not done. Okay, so kind of like dropping the mic there. So, all right. Well, I've got the main reason I wanted you on here. Not only that we've been friends, but Sammy Hagar. Tell us about this. This is very recent, right?
This just came out. This interview just came out Monday, so
Yeah.
there's a funny story to it. And as you all know, I'm a music guy. I love my photography and things, and I've there's a whole story to that. But uh, I wanted to interview Sammy Hagar for probably 10 years, and he's a challenging person to connect with because he's so busy. He's not just a musician, but he's an entrepreneur. You know, he's got his hands in all sorts of different things. And I went out to a show a couple 2-3 weeks ago to his residency in Vegas, and I wrote a review about his show. I didn't take pictures or do anything like that. It was much more for me about my ability to just connect with the music. I've learned over time that I can easily, you go and you take pictures of things. That's a job in many cases, right? You're being paid and to do certain things for somebody, but you lose track of why you actually started it. So I just went to this show from a perspective of listening to the music and enjoying myself, and I wrote this initial review of the show on a plane. I was like, I'm going to do this. I don't have pictures, but I want to be able to convey it. And the following day, when it was posted, I got a text. Uh, Sammy Hagar's son Andrew's a friend of mine, and he texted me and he goes, "Hey, Pops really loved this, right?" And it's just, that's kind of a strange thing to hear. And I'm like, "Oh, it's great." The man, the chairman, I call him, is like what I did. And so I was talking to their publicist, and I said, "Hey, if there's ever an opportunity to perhaps meet with Sammy and have a discussion with him, I'd love to do it." And within a couple days, I got a request to set up a kind of an online interview with him. And I was kind of taken back because the last interview he did was with Dan Rather, right? Now think
Oh,
about that for just a second, right? Dan Rather. I'm not in any league with Dan Rather,
wow.
but the guy's willing to take half an hour, 45 minutes with me and shoot the shit. And so we did.
Yeah.
And I put some questions together that I thought were very thoughtful. We talked through different things. We enjoyed ourselves. And the next day, he actually texted me personally, and he said, "This interview was fantastic. You captured exactly what I'm looking for. You're not a clickbait guy. You're interested in actual things, and that's why I wanted to do this. And you proved me right." And
That's awesome.
so that's how that came to be. That's how it came to be. And it was one of my bigger interviews, outside of in that world that I've done, and really proud of that. And not just in what I wrote, because I think it was meaningful in the questions, but just to be acknowledged from someone like that who has been in the industry for so long and is so revered, and not just as a musician, but a business person, right? Someone who
Right.
has started all these tequila companies and everything else, and he didn't have to do this. There was no real reason that he had to do this with me. Um, and quite honestly, I was shocked that, he had the time for it, but nonetheless, there it was. So
How many times have you done any, or have you done any shows photography for him or Van Halen back in the day?
uh, I have. So, when you were scrolling through that interview and that one, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of pictures, all those pictures outside of the posed pictures, those are my pictures
Yeah.
from
Let's go
different
back to
shoots
that
that
real
I've done
quick.
with them before. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you
I'm
go
going to pull
back
that
and
up.
look, I'll
Oh, there we go.
so like if you look at that picture as example, I was working for them, actually working for them that night. And that was at Harrah's and Laughlin. That was a picture that I took of them on stage. I was behind them actually on stage. And that's Sammy
You
Hagar
have
and
his
Michael Anthony.
tequila up? Is that, or no? Well,
He
that's not
did.
him. Oh, okay. That's his
No, it's
tequila.
him. Yeah, that's him and his tequila. Absolutely.
So when you
Right.
say you
And
were
then the other picture.
when you
Mhm.
say you were working for them, the band actually hires you to do the photography for their own content
Or is it
creation
the
and stuff
In
venue?
like
that
that.
particular, so in that particular case, I was invited out to work for his son. His son was opening for him at that time, right? That's how I met everybody. Um, and so when, a lot of times the work that I do, it comes in different ways. Some of it is it's paid publication work, some of it is non-paid, and then some of it is direct for bands and things like that. So in this particular case, I was invited out as a guest of the family, working for his son to do some editorial work for his son, and then got an opportunity to work with Sammy directly at that point, which was really cool. Sammy
Yeah.
has a professional photographer. The two pictures that are posed, the cover picture and the one at the very bottom, her name's Leah. She's fantastic. She's just an amazing person. But the things that I do are more considered live work. So things that are happening on stage in real time, usually in front of the
Mhm.
stage or at the back of the arena shooting stages and things like that. But um, I'm hired by lots of different people. I work for different arenas, and I've worked for bands over the years, and so it's kind of been a side hustle for me, a kind of a passion play. But I can tie in my music and my photography, and then ultimately that tied in. Ethan, you talk about ice and how we tie it right back. A lot of the customers that I have are concert arenas and amphitheaters and festival promoters who employ me to do that work, as an ice distributor.
Right.
And then I just so happen to then get access to other things too, which is great.
I wanted to ask you, is like, anybody ever say, wait, that's the photographer. Wait, no, that's the ice guy. Wait, try to figure out, you got so many
Huh.
hats that you're wearing while you're there. That's pretty
Well,
funny.
I try to separate as much of that as I can. In the early days, it was me doing it all. I take a trailer out there and then I just stay there and I do photography and whatever.
So you
Now
say,
I try to separate that, right? Now I
that's awesome.
separate that and I have, we have other people on the team that do all the deliveries and stuff. And then I can, if I'm going to go out and do work for somebody or I've been invited to come out, I do that on my own. So I try not to keep them together. It was clunky at the beginning because hey, the trailer's not working as planned. And then, hey, we got to do this in different parts of a fairgrounds or something like that. And it was a little tough, but I try to delegate all that stuff now. So if I'm doing one or the other, then I try not to integrate them too much.
What's your camera of choice?
So I shoot Canon. I have all full frame cameras with Canon. I've been, I've evolved my Canon cameras over the years. I have the old AE1 film camera. I've got that still in one of my drawers. And then,
Okay.
over the years, I've
Not
just kind of
digital.
evolved
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's all digital stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a full range of digital cameras and lenses that I use based upon the type of work that I have to do, and then I have lighting kits and other things for events that I'm doing. So, but Canon is it's just kind of muscle memory for me. There's a lot, you could shoot Sony or Nikon or a bunch of stuff, but I just shoot Canon, and that's what I do.
We actually are using, we upgraded, not only have we changed platforms, but we've got new mics. We've actually using, got my wife for Christmas a Canon R, I think it was R5. I think that's right.
Mhm.
but now we have a EOS old, I think a D80 camera that we're using, but it's great for this. It's really high resolution, so it's a pretty neat the camera. I mean, we could do a deep dive into that and all the settings. I have no clue. I like to go on the auto setting, which I know that probably tears you to pieces to hear somebody goes auto settings. You know, you're going to be
No, no, not necessarily. I mean, I shoot with an R5 too and an R6, and the cameras are, what those cameras can do now, and I do everything in manual for the most part, but there's different parts that can be auto as well, and obviously we could definitely go through that, but it's the cameras can do so much now, and but there is one caveat to that, is it doesn't really matter what the camera does, it's what you do behind the scenes to it.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
so how you edit your pictures and how you frame things up are most important. And so without that, the camera's not going to go out and take a picture itself, nor is it going to edit the photo for you for a client. So that's where the magic comes, in my opinion. And that's where I find a lot of joy in that, where I can some evenings sit back with a nice drink and relax and just do my editing and listen
Yeah.
to music, and it kind of all comes together for me.
Well, and I think we've talked about it so much. We've got to go ahead and just show some of his photography.
Yeah,
So,
let's do that. And as I'm going over here, one of the things you had that you had talked about, and I'd love for you to give me a little bit of background for Jeff and I. But one of the things that
Yeah.
you talked about in the interview, you talked about your mother. One of the last questions, I believe, and I think
Mhm.
being a fan, and just kind of give us some insight, because what I felt like when I read the interview that you had with Sammy Hagar was just he seemed like a thoughtful guy, you know? It didn't have a rock
Yeah.
star mentality when I was reading his replies to your questions.
Yeah.
And we'll put this link to this article in the comments so everybody can go there and enjoy it.
in in the description
What did
below,
I say?
yeah,
Yeah, not in the comments. My
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me just one
So,
sec.
uh,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, tell us about that.
but I'd like to tell you about that, because that was kind of a catalyst for this whole thing kind of happening. So, um, my mom passed recently, back in November. It was it wasn't shocking, but it was kind of a sudden thing that we weren't kind of ready for. And my mom, she loved uh, she loved music. She enjoyed my stories, about things that I've done in my photography, and obviously a huge advocate for us at Bear Ice. And so, um, but she loved Sammy Hagar, and she loved, a song called Eagles Fly. It just was an amazing, one of my favorites. And, she loved that song. And her and I always used to, she goes, "Oh, if you ever get a chance to talk to him, I wanted you to ask this question, and I want to know how he figured it out." And, and so when I wrote the initial review of the show, um, I called that out because, first off, I hadn't talked to Sammy at that point, and we had no conversations about any of this. But he made a comment about um, the song and what it meant to him, and I felt compelled to ask that question and tie it back to my mom and the interview and the whole thing. And what was interesting to hear from him was, and Ethan, you're right. He was his demeanor and how he comes across. It's very professional. I mean, he's definitely what I would consider an A type personality, but he also, there's a different side to him that I think a lot of people don't get. And when we were talking about this particular topic, his how he responded to me changed completely. It wasn't like the energetic, I'm Sammy Hagar, and
A
it was
showman.
it was
Yeah.
kind of dialed back to a story. And he said his mother, when she was still alive, I'm going to paraphrase all this, and I hope I don't get it wrong, but she loved that song too, and she said, "Sam, when I pass away, I'd love for you to sing this at my funeral." And his response was, "Mom, you're not going anywhere," and so on and so forth, and let's not talk about that. Like how maybe many of us would be.
Right.
And when she did pass, he was unable to do it. He couldn't do it. He said that I just there was no way I could do it. I would not be able to manage that, the emotions that come with that song. But he did tell me in the interview, he walked me through, here in Southern California where that song was inspired, about 60 miles south of where we're at, and what he was doing and how he was feeling. And he tied that to the experience of music and how we tie as humans, events and things to music that we hear. And he goes, that's why this is also important to me, because you've captured in your interview the experience of what one of my shows is like. It's not just hearing I Can't Drive 55 or a bottle of, Santo tequila. It's more about this experience that people carry with them over a lifetime, right?
Right.
And his when he was talking again, he wasn't energetic at that point. You could tell he was very somber, and you could tell he was very thoughtful about what was happening. And to me, and I was like that too. I was getting goosebumps, and he said the same. And yesterday when we got all this posted, and he texted me direct, and he just said, "Look, I tell you one more time, you captured what I wanted, what I wanted from this. No clickbait, no nonsense, straight from the heart. And you've always got a friend in Sammy, right?" Now, that's and that's kind of overwhelming in a sense,
Yeah.
because again, I'm just a normal. I consider myself a normal dude. I'm not pretentious. I could care less about status or any of that stuff. I just love what I do. And to hear something like that for no reason other than saying I love what you did, and you captured it, was a kind of a how would you put it? It was for me it was a reminder that I'm doing good things, you know.
Mm.
And
Right.
there was no expectations of anything. I didn't do it for any particular reason. It was just because I felt it at the moment. And so it just highlighted that for me. But it was really cool. And that particular song is very high on my list. And it was for my mom too.
Yeah, sorry we haven't got over to the photos, but I did want to highlight that because I remember when your mother passed, and our condolences. I know it's been some time since then, but still, our mothers are our mothers, and um, you know,
Yep.
I know it's tough, but I knew that that's something that meant a lot when I read that particular part of the interview. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to it. Was this only well, I say a written interview, but how did you transcribe it down, or did I miss something that there was actually an audio portion to the interview?
No, I've chosen a very unique way of doing things personally as it relates to my interviews. Many people use Zoom or formats like this where they're talking to people and they're doing what they're doing. When I transcribe things, I record all of it. I have a back. I use like something like Free Conference Call or whatever, and I'll record it all.
Right.
And then I use a transcribing service to kind of transcribe it, because I don't want. First off, I'm a little self conscious, in the sense that this isn't real. That's not really. I'm not the guy that wants to be behind the camera all the time, and I just don't do that. There's a lot of
Wait,
people who are.
wait. Pardon the pun, right?
You're
you,
behind the
you don't
camera.
you don't want to be in front of the camera.
And here I am. And here I am. But when it comes to interviews, I've tried to take the interviews that I've done and distill them down into manageable stories that our vinyl district readers, that's where I primarily do this for, will read. And so I know it's tough sometimes to get to capture people's interest, and so I just felt that worked best for me. So I have the recording I could refer back to if I need it, but I transcribe it and then I review it and I do all my tweaking to it, and then the initial part of the interview is me, and it all comes together. But it's more for me just a comfort level.
Right.
I'm speaking to people on the phone, and quite honestly, in our industry, in the music business, 99% of the people are not interested in either meeting you in person or even doing Zoom. We call them phoners, and you just jump on a phone call and you talk, because that's
Yeah.
all the time that they have. So that's how I learned it. And I haven't really strayed away from that since I've started.
Yeah. So well written. So please take an opportunity, guests, to click on that link down in the description,
Yeah.
not the comments. So, but do that.
Thank you.
But let's get over to the photos. So sorry again, Jeff, for pushing this back a little bit, but I did want to go through that. So we're going to show some photos here. we don't have the time. If you want to go out and friend Matthew, so you'll probably get like 100,000 requests as friends to come in here. But some of these photos are just, they're just fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk to each one of these as we wait for Facebook to load and take forever. And tell you what, I'll just close that out. We'll just leave it here. And if you get an opportunity, the way that you're able to capture this photography, it's not like you can't take video and then just screen grab something. What are you looking for? What makes you so unique? Because what I see from yours is it's so descriptive. I don't even know really how to do it, Jeff. How would you explain it?
I mean, as you're glancing at these, they appear as little thumbnails. Any one of these could be a poster. Yeah,
It could, yeah.
Any one of these is just kind of a masterpiece.
Unfortunately, it's not loading here, but these are fantastic. I mean, they're just outstanding.
Well, let me answer. I can answer that question for you. And it's actually, when I started, taking photos of live music back in, I think, 2015. And I was primarily told at that point that you're not going to be able to do it. It's a really tough business to get into, and you're probably not going to be able to do what you want to do. And I kind of took that as whoever told it was like it was like a I almost felt like someone was trying to play me a different way, like, hey, this isn't for you. And I took that as a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And I found a mentor who could help me learn about this a little bit. I could ask questions in a safe place. And one of the things that my mentor had taught me was it really has nothing to do with you. You could love a picture, you could take a picture and look at it and post it, but it's not about what you like. It's about what the band will they like it, or will the fans like it? And that's all that counts, because we all might love everything we do. And so what I tried to do in all those pictures you were looking at on Instagram was capture moments, unique moments. And when you're at a show, you get 3 songs usually from the front of the stage, and you're in front of the audience. You're in front of that group for maybe 10 or 12 minutes.
Okay.
So you have 12 minutes to work in most cases, unless you're working for a band where you have full access, you can roam around wherever you want. You get 12 minutes. And so you're taking lots of different pictures, and I focus a lot on energy and experience. So when I'm looking at a stage, I'm trying to compose something that I think is going to elicit a response. If I look at Jeff and say, Jeff, can I show you what this picture looked like if you were going to go see this show? Because I'd love for you to go see the show. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of gimmicks in this industry right now, lots of filters and this and that. And they're not really true reflections of what people see at a show. And so I took it upon myself to provide photos that truly represented what I saw and felt. And it's a lot of paring down of photos. You might take 500 photos and you might have 30 that are great. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to.
My next question is how many,
right?
In 12 minutes.
And so that's about, so it distills down into this. And when you distill it down to that, you have to be understanding that, look, you have more bad pictures than good ones. But if you can get good ones that are sharp and you can edit them appropriately, that's the result of what you see on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. And they convey that message, that energy of a live performance. And I've carried that my whole career with that. I just, I'm not interested in showing you something that's not true. And I'm not talking about removing of a water bottle or some nonsense that was thrown on the stage, but it's like, there's no swirls or light filters or blurriness that you see. You want to capture what the true essence of a show is. And then most importantly, I write about that. I'll take time to write about what I felt and saw, and it came out in the interview and other things that I've done too. So that's kind of how I look at those things.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, this is going to be an icebreaker. You've been you've been in front of and around and interacted with a lot of different celebrities. Uh, can
Huh?
you think of someone that you spoke about Sammy a bunch today? Maybe not him, but
Can't use him.
can you think of someone else that you met that you were starstruck?
Like, you almost couldn't talk to him. You know, it's like,
Um, you know what? I can, and this is an interesting story. And I think in the other pictures I sent you, Jeff, it's in this picture. The picture is there, but
Okay.
I'll share it. And then if we go through those pictures later,
Yeah.
I can share it with you. So, I was, I'm a big fan of all types of music, but I like my 80s music, whether it's hair metal or whether it's new wave or whatever. I love all that stuff.
Okay.
I grew up with it. So, about 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years, maybe it was last year actually. OMD, the band, if you've heard of them, they're a new wave band, like Depeche Mode or any of those bands. They were kind of they were grandfathers of this type of music. And I had an opportunity to talk to their lead singer, and just, off the cuff, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come out?" And that's the picture right there. So he asked me, he said, "I'd love for you to come out and you can be our photographer. We'll bring you out and we'll have you do this for us." This was a festival called Cruel World, and there was about 55 or 60,000 people there.
Just a
So,
small gathering.
so interesting, a small gathering. So interestingly enough, I met with the tour manager and he's like, "Look, here's what we're going to do. You shoot the whole show for us. Here's what we want. And then at the end of the show, we're going to have the guys pose for you. And you're going to go up on stage and take this picture." I said, "Great." So I'm positioned. The song comes to an end, and they're supposed to turn around. The picture you're looking at was wrong. They were supposed to turn around and look at me, and I was supposed to take the picture, and then they were going to do it the other way. Well, they forgot. They
they're
forgot.
giving you their better side, I
So
guess, right?
yeah, so they rushed. They ended up rushing off the stage, and I was just devastated. Right, I'm like, "Oh my god, I wasn't able to get what they wanted. They're not." And it was raining too, by the way. It looks a little misty. There was raining.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be bad." So I'm getting ready to walk back to my car later that evening, and I get a text, and the text says, um, "Could you come over? The band would like to see you. Would you mind going over to their trailer?" And I'm like, "Oh, man, this is not good. Sorry about that." And so I'm 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 I'm, um, I'm sheepishly thinking about what I'm gonna say because I'm not sure what they're gonna say. And I literally walk into a trailer, and the four of the guys in the band in OMD were there. And the lead singer's name's Andy McCluskey. He goes, "Hey, we just want to apologize. We were given we were given instructions on what to do. We didn't do it, and we're sorry." And they're laughing. And they said, "Have a seat." And it was just the four of them and me in a trailer. Nobody else. No handlers, no fans, nothing. And I was literally floored that they
Yeah.
even cared enough to call me over to talk, let alone I'm talking with literally legends in this type of space.
Just
And it was
hanging
such
out.
a moving moment for me, right? Where I didn't know what to say. I was just like, I'm going over there thinking I'm going to get, they're not going to be happy. They, whatever.
Right.
And instead they were just very, giving me hugs and talking, and it was really neat. And just to be able to have an experience like that, like on stage with them, and then to be recognized, and to, and yeah, I was starstruck. I was like, I don't know what to say to these guys. What would you say to your icons, right? And
Yeah.
and it was a very neat experience for me, and one I'd never forget.
Yeah, well, tell you what, let's just hang on to this theme since we were already showing some photos and everything. Let's talk about
Mhm.
you shared some other images with us that we want to let you talk to, and
Yeah.
you obviously took the time to send these over. So we were looking through some of these photos and kind of tell us what we're looking at.
So this was actually a few days ago. I just wanted to share because it was kind of a neat thing. So
Hmm.
I do, in some of my work locally, I do celebrity meet and greets. Like, there'll be a show. This was a Stand By Me movie. They actually did a movie at a theater, and where I work. And then what they did was they did a VIP meet and greet. So this is there's 3 of the 4 people. If you remember Stand By Me back from whatever year that was, 83 or 2. The only one that's missing is River Phoenix, as he passed. But
Oh,
these were
right.
the 3 guys obviously in the movie.
Okay.
And so
Oh.
I had an opportunity, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton, whatever. And so I got a chance to do their celebrity meet and greet with their fans. And then they said, "Hey, can we take a picture with you?" And so that's what this picture is. So
Oh,
it was
that's very cool.
11:30 or 12 on Friday night, and it was the last photo that we took, and their tour manager took this of us. So
And Will Wheaton, for those that are Big Bang Theory aficionados, or I guess going back to Star Trek: The Next Generation, he was Wesley Crusher
yes,
back in the day. So, yeah. But
yes,
anyway, not yeah. Anyway, I enjoy the Big Bang Theory a lot, and he shows up there as himself in the Big Bang Theory. If you've ever watched
and
it,
he was
so
they were all great guys. And this
great.
picture here, obviously, I'm a Notre Dame guy. I go to football games all the time. The guy on the at the opposite of me on the far right is my brother Mark. He's my partner. And then the gentleman in the middle is our friend Mike Viscomi. Mike has been a lifelong friend of ours too. And this was we were at a Notre Dame UCLA game, I don't know, many years ago when they came here to LA. But that's a picture. I just wanted to have that. That's a picture of my brother.
Well, you and I, we've talked about this because you're Fighting Irish, and my Auburn Tigers are going to be having a home and home matchup
there
in
we go.
football.
Sure.
So we are behind the scenes trying to figure out how we can get to each of these. So I've already invited you down, and then we've got to try to figure out a way if I can make it up for that game. I really want to go up there.
Oh, we'd
I've
love,
been
yeah,
outside of the
we'll
stadium.
definitely take care of all that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, no, looking
Exactly.
forward to it. So would love that
Yep.
opportunity.
So this picture is we took this. I think it was last year. It's my wife Tanya, and we're taking this picture in front of the church where we were actually married 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
It's in my community, and we were just taking a walk one night. We popped over there. I'm like, oh my God, it looks beautiful tonight. We just took a picture. So that's who that is. She's my
Very
better half for sure.
Well, you guys still look in love, my friend.
Yes, we are. You asked a question about being starstruck.
Yeah.
This particular show, I was invited as one of only one online publication to do this.
Okay.
And I do want to share the story because it's kind of strange. So it's almost impossible to shoot the Rolling Stones at all. I mean, it's surprising that they're still
Impossible in what
around, but
way? Yeah, define you're talking about
they
getting
just don't,
big or
they don't allow a lot of access
okay.
for photographers. They don't need it, right? So I met this gentleman through an article that I wrote, and he we were talking, and I go, man, it'd be so great to shoot the Rolling Stones. And excuse me to set this here.
No, you're good.
It's so it's so I'd really love to do this, right? And he goes, well, maybe we can make that happen for you. I'm like, all right, you can make it happen. That'd be wonderful. I mean, it's like almost like a pipe dream of sorts,
Like a
that
bucket
you're going to
list.
be in front of the Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
right? And
Hey,
so,
take a call. We've had interviews where people have taken calls on it, so we're good, man. Do business. We're
it'll
good.
go to voicemail, and I know who it is. So the gentleman I was working with, what he said was, I'm going to give you a phone number, and I want you to call this phone number. And I said, who am I calling? He goes, I don't know who you're calling. He goes, you just call this phone number, and when you get to the people you need to get to, they can get it arranged for you. I'm like, shit, all right. So I called this number, and it was a phone number and a room number. So I called the phone, and it said something like, Waldorf Astoria, how can I help? And I said, can I have room whatever?
Right.
And they transferred me up, and some female answered, hey, how can I help? And I'm like, I was referred by such and such. And she just starts laughing. And she goes, you were? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm really interested in coming out and shooting the show. They said I could call you and that you'd be able to consider it. And she goes, well, and it was just quiet, kind of an awkward pause. And then she goes, all right, just give me a day. I'll see if I can get this sorted out for you. And then the next day I got approved to do it. And it was Mick Jagger's personal assistant, and was handling all this stuff for him. And they just, because of who I knew, they approved it. And it was wow. And this stadium, when I took this picture, that was in front of about 80,000 people,
Crazy.
right? 80,000 people. And I had 2 songs. I had 6 minutes to do all this. So 6 minutes is all I got. So,
Well, two
it was
things. Did
pretty
you ever
amazing to
feel
be
like?
able to.
Oh, go ahead, finish, Matthew, please.
No, it was an amazing experience to be in front of a legend like this.
Yeah.
A amazing photo, and the fact that obviously you've got to have good backdrops, and in somebody like the Rolling Stones, they're going to have world class everything around them, right? I mean, they just have it right,
Mhm.
but you still
Sure.
have to get in the proper position, the leveling. Like, he doesn't look like he has a body. Okay. I mean, it looks like he is just a floating head with a
Mhm.
jacket, but you have to be in the right spot, right time. And I know you're clicking 90 to nothing off that, but still you have to be in the right spot. And that's the thing that I know from photography is positioning. And then the other thing I wanted to add or mention to you, if Jagger had picked up and he was the one that had answered that call, do you feel, at what point were you going to be like, I'm being punked? Somebody's punking me and looking for the
Well,
camera.
I would have, I thought initially that was how all this was going to be, because it
Right.
doesn't really work in the industry like this. And so I thought that I was just being called, like I was kind of being jerked around a little bit, like it's someone's game. And
Mhm.
I didn't think that Mick Jagger would answer, frankly, but I didn't know. I didn't know at that point if there might have been some, like, behind the scenes game, like we're going to play with this guy a little bit, and teach him, whatever. So if he would have answered, I would have definitely taken. I would have been ready. But I would have. I wasn't really anticipating that. I was anticipating it was going to be some connection to the band of some sort, and so that's how I prepared. But if he would have answered, I would have asked him. I asked him the same thing I asked his assistant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a great picture. That's my mom. Um, So it's myself and my mom before my graduation at Notre Dame, and my dad is off to the right. So my dad's one of the founders of Bear Ice. And this was a picture I have up on my desk right now, and it means a lot to me. So
Yeah, I didn't know if this was just a creeper, that was just photo bombing you or not, but
nope,
so that's bad. Okay.
that's Cat. Yep. So this picture is this is an older picture. So if you recall, the wonderful Arnold Schwarzenegger was our governor.
Mhm.
Um, and he was touring around California. I think it was back in, I don't know what year this might have been, 2002, 2003, or some vicinity of there.
Right.
And and we went. I said, I got to go to this rally. This will be kind of fun to see. And I got right up on the rail and I was hanging out there. And he walked right up to me and I said, "Oh, I'm going to just take a selfie, or flip my camera around and take a picture." And he was the nicest guy, most definitely, and was gracious enough for me to take that picture. And it's really neat memory for me. That was a long time. That was a long time ago.
Well, you look like the bodybuilder here. He looks small compared to you, my friend.
I'm a little taller than him, but that's a picture of me just working. That's just a picture someone grabbed of me at a festival of some sort. And I told you earlier that my original camera, my Canon 81, it's on my arm. So um, that
Oh,
that
okay.
I did
Yeah.
that work. I did that, and I'm going to add to that later down the road. I've got other things I want to add to it, but it's interesting. You can't really see it. You'd have to see it in person, but the film strip has lots of pictures in it, and there are
Yeah.
things they were important to me. There's a clover, and there's other things, and palm trees, and so on. It's really neat. So
I think you've got
kind
a
of cool.
good enough room right down here on your bicep. I will send the artist the BTI logo, and you'll be able to
Yeah,
get that put on there. So I think that'll
we'll throw it right
make
in there. Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, this is a good friend of mine, Brad, and this is a number of years ago when we first started going to Notre Dame games, and Notre Dame had different access. The stadium was different at that time. we had seats literally right behind us on the field. And when they had there was no wall on the south end zone, and so we were able to
Yes,
walk out and
that.
take a picture, and that's one of my favorite pictures.
Well, very good. All right. Well, thank you
Cool.
for sharing all those photos with our guests and everything, and with Jeff and I. So go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, we're kind of coming up on the ending here. We got to
We
wrap it.
are. I want to talk more about photography,
Yeah,
but we can't.
it's easy to keep going. Um, so my last question, Matthew, is going to be one of our icebreakers. Since you're such a music guy, I want to ask if your life had a theme song, what do you think that would be?
Or what type of vibe
Wow,
you going for?
that's kind of a great question.
Well, that's where we have Jeff
And
for. He brings the good questions.
I
So.
didn't think of the question. I just like it.
and I would say this, and this takes me back to kind of my original roots of my love for music. I was I was just I seventh, eighth grade. I had a group of friends who just loved music, turntables and albums and all that stuff. And I was a huge Van Halen guy. This was long before Sammy Hagar was a Van Halen, and I still remember, right now, "Running with the Devil" as my theme song, right? Not, just because I thought the lyrics to that song were really cool. It had such a great beat, and I was just running in all sorts of different directions, and sometimes people thought like, what's he doing? He's like all here and there, and I just thought that was kind of a cool theme song for me. There's one other one too. Depeche Mode is a big. They're huge. I'm huge fans of theirs. I've been following them for just as long, and they have a song called "Enjoy the Silence." And the other side of me is just I'm a very much as I'm an extrovert, I'm a very much an introvert too. And I like it when it's quiet and there's no one around and I can think, riding my bike and other types of stuff. And so I love that song too. So both of those would be my theme songs.
All right, those would be your walk-up songs if you play baseball, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, knowing you for quite a few years, we really haven't talked about music, before, except for the photography that you've done before. That's the reason I wanted you on as a guest to go through that again, talk a little bit about ice. But I was going to say Beastie Boys. That if I had to put something, I would have thought that you might have. Where do you land on Beastie Boys?
Beastie Boys they're iconic. They're again one of my favorites. That their initial album was probably one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah.
But and every song on that album I could probably quote verbatim through each song. All of it. Again, don't get me started on that. They're legendary, and so there's No Sleep Till Brooklyn and Paul Revere and
Yeah, Paul Revere is probably that's probably my favorite off that album.
yeah.
But it's chock full. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong picking any of them. So I do have a quasi icebreaker before the last question, and we'll have Jeff
Yeah.
close us out.
Sure.
We talked about who you were starstruck with, people that you have taken photos of. Who is on your bucket list if you could get, because we know BTI reaches millions of
I
people,
mean,
millions.
you never
right?
know what doors
You never know.
this could open.
Who, if you could pick one person that you haven't been able to photograph yet, who would that be?
Well, I'm working on this right now, and it's
Breaking
it
news,
ties right
Jeff.
back to my walkout song. But I'm I'd really in my heart, coming up on the 20th, if I can pull it off, to take pictures of David Lee Roth. Now, he's changed a lot. He's never been the greatest singer. And he's got a lot of static over the years for not being able to sing as well as he used to. He never really could. I mean, if you really listen to him, he speaks, he doesn't
Right.
sing. And he'll be here in Anaheim, and that's something that I want to do. Hopefully I'll be approved for that. I'd love to do an interview with him. I don't think he gives interviews anymore, but he's one of those guys that, like, from my childhood when I was 12, where I'm like, if I could ever, I mean, I had the big poster up on the wall and the whole Diamond Dave and the
Yeah.
assless chaps and whatever the hell he did, right? So
Did a lot.
that would be one right now that I would love to be able to do if I can.
Yeah.
Well, you got our vote. I mean, if they call to ask us,
Yeah,
we're
we'll
gonna
we'll
say,
we'll think about it.
yeah,
We'll
thumbs
think
up.
about it. Um,
Thank you. Thanks,
and
guys.
if you need somebody to help hold a few cameras or something, if you ever need an assistant, just let me know, and I may know a guy. Last question for you. As far as advice, what would you give ICE companies out there if there was a startup or somebody thinking about going back into a family business in 2026? What advice would you give someone?
That's a great question, and I think it's the same advice I always offer folks. I have my whole life. My life has been about service and providing great customer service, right? And I want to share this with you because it's important. It's important for you to understand the um the genesis of this. Um, I don't think anything happens by chance. I think that we provide as people services to people through relationships, right? Um, I work with RouteMan and you all because of relationships, right? They've been fantastic relationships, and you all seem to have an understanding of you all seem to have an understanding of what uh, great customer service is. And throughout my career at Sears Holdings, Lakeshore Learning, Bear Ice, etc., being able to listen to people and what they're actually looking for and be able to provide that while not giving the farm away is a it's a interesting place you have to walk, right? You can't give everyone everything to everyone. You can't solve every problem for everybody.
Well, if you're still with us, we have Matthew Belter has he was giving us flowers, Jeff. So I don't know if he's going to pop back in here, but I truly do hate because we didn't pay him to say any of that, but that's awfully nice of him. What do you think?
Well, I'm wondering with our new platform if maybe we can save the recording on his side. I guess we'll find out
Yeah,
after.
we'll certainly find out. Well, Jeff, you want to close us out here since it seems like we may have lost Matthew. But Matthew, as you watch this back, we so appreciate you joining us on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Matthew, it's been great to get to spend this time with you. Thank you for sharing with us. We've been coming at you from the RouteMan Studios at KCS headquarters in Pelham, Alabama. Thanks so much for watching.
Have a great day.